This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Hey guys, Jay here, welcome to Models Memories Weekly, episode 173. Models Memories is a show about nothing and is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about painting, modeling, and working experiences from the week. Now you might be thinking to yourself, Jay, you put out 3 YouTube videos a week. Could I possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week, Games Workshop came out with another little tease for Necromunda and the Indices for Age of Sigmar 4th edition. But first, have you ever needed a website to call your own but you don't know exactly how Square to make it? Well, today's sponsor, Squarespace, is here to help. Squarespace allows anyone to break into website design with easy-to-use features like the new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. Choose from a professionally curated selection of styling options to build a unique online presence from the ground up. Squarespace makes it easy to launch your website and get discovered fast with integrated optimized SEO tools so you can show up more often to more people and grow the way you want. Or your own online storefront. Whether your services are physical, digital, or service-based, selling your wares has never been easier with Squarespace's seamless checkout tools. With a Squarespace website, your customers can use whatever payment system they prefer, whether it's credit cards, PayPal, Apple Pay, Afterpay, or ClearPay. Selling your unique wares has never been easier. Squarespace offers a free trial for you to dip your feet into and test the waters, and ready to dive in headfirst, you can go to squarespace.com/EonsOfBattle or follow the link in the description to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Games Workshop is showing us some more Necromunda goodness that we can't buy yet. I don't know how long they're gonna tease us for Hive Secundus and suck on these nuts before they're gonna let us actually buy any of this Necromunda stuff, but everything they've shown off has been really cool, and the Tech Priest Biologus Hermiotus returns to the Hive Secundus, or does he? A really cool Tech Priesty guy with a little Gene Stealer friend. Oh, and his little friend has a little shirt. Aww, he's so cute. And the guy is so gross. If you look at one of his mechadendrites, it's got like a metal cable going to it, and then it's also got a flesh cable going to it. And I don't know, Games Workshop, if you know what flesh cables look like. They kind of look like something, but it's coming out the back of him. I don't know if that's better. He's great. I really like this guy. Every one of these models would work really, really well in a Gene Stealer Cult army. And of course, they work really well in Necromunda Hive Secundus Nuts, which I'm really excited to try out and play. Everything for it has looked amazing. If the price isn't egregious, I'll probably buy it all. But man, all the models are super lovely. So much goodness from Forge World, which I was kind of wondering if Forge World was going to end, because when everything moved into Warhammer, every release of a codex so far has meant an axing of a ton of the Forge World range. Orcs got like 11 datasheets removed. Necrons got everything but the Giant Titan removed. Sisters of Battle never had anything. That's not necessarily true. Back when they were like more agents of the Imperium, more working with the Inquisition, they did have a couple of things on Forge World, but Forge World is pretty barren right now, except for like the Titans and some of the heavy units. But they are going hard on Necromunda. I have a couple of Forge World Necromunda models that I need to paint up, and it's just, I wonder, Forge World resin is borderline acceptable. I've bought a lot of resin from a lot of different companies. Most companies do a really good job, some of them, and Games Workshop somehow, multi-billion-dollar Games Workshop is somehow on the scale. And it always sort of made a little bit of sense because Forge World was in theory its own thing. And so it didn't have the perfect polish of plastic. Like Games Workshop plastics are perfect. Forge World resin is not perfect. But then when you're buying them from the Warhammer web store, it feels like they should be perfect. They should not release products that cost often $100+ and have the resin casting not be absolutely perfect. And they were making a ton of the 30K stuff into plastic instead of Forge World resin. So I thought Forge World might be on its last legs, and maybe it still is, but they are still releasing models. I would love to know, I would love to be in the meeting rooms of like, what are we gonna do with this dusty building full of silicone molds that some people occasionally still buy? Like they probably will always offer like a Warlord Titan. Like the Titans are probably safe because just every now and then someone purchases one. When I got my Reaver Titan, I'm pretty sure he's like Reaver Titan 4000 or something. Like they haven't actually made that many. It might even be less than that, like 3000 something. Like the number of Titans out there in the wild. I mean, There are a lot, because there may or may not be, but definitely are, a whole lot of not quite Games Workshop titans floating out there, both 3D prints and resin recasts. But yeah, it's just, Forge World is it's like a weird little tumor growing on Games Workshop. Games Workshop itself, I mean, they're not perfect, but they're very good at what they do, which is making plastic models, and somewhat bad at making rules. They're actually getting better at making rules. They're just really bad at giving those rules to us. And speaking of giving those rules to us, Warhammer 40k, I have been playing it a ton. I had a game last night, I had a game last week using the new Pariah mission deck, which does seem like it's an improvement on Leviathan. One thing I like about it is a lot of the secondary missions and the primary scoring is a lot easier to do, which in a way makes the game better because it's just easier to get points, but it kind of makes the game harder because it's easier to get points. So you and your opponent both have to be scoring like perfectly on your secondaries, perfectly on your primaries, every single turn you're falling behind. And another thing that's super annoying is just the rules bloat. Now that we have like the 33-page FAQ, we've got the erratas, we got the erratas for each individual codex. You can no longer download the indexes for the armies that now have codexes. And so it becomes like a weird mishmash of trying to figure out am I playing exactly correct? And I've been trying to play faster and faster and faster because I am trying to get into competitive 40k. Why? I don't know, but it seemed like fun at the time. It's hard. It is hard to play. I played a game last night, all 5 rounds, 2 hours and 40 minutes. Holy cow, I felt drained after that. And I'm gonna be doing it again this Saturday in a 3-round, it's not a 3-round like friendly tournament or a 3-round, if you win here, then you get like a free ticket or you get entered to play in the next rounds. But yeah, 3-hour games over the course of one singular day. Like I've played a lot of 40k and it's always been kind of beer and pretzels, like hanging out around the kitchen table or the living room table or more often the basement table in the cold, in the dark, and with some pretzels. It's hard to do the math. It's hard to do the math so fast. And you're looking at your opponent and they're talking through their dice rolls. And while they're talking through your dice rolls, you're putting your saves into your hand so that you can roll them instantly. And then you gotta think like, okay, I failed 5, 2 damage apiece. My guys have 3 wounds. How many guys died? 2.5. Okay. And then you start taking them off, or no, 2, and 1 guy's alive on 1 wound. See, I just did it wrong just then. Like it's really hard to get to be doing it perfectly. And then you have to think of like all of your different opportunities. When do you pop your stratagems? Which units do you send off to try to grab primaries and secondaries? Which units do you try to stop your opponent from doing primaries and secondaries? Which things of your opponents will just end your units? Like, okay, I'll throw my guys over here and trade them for victory points, or I'll throw them at this tank to try to get rid of his tank so that he can't do something with that later because I want to move these guys into position. It's a wild, wild ride. I'm very excited for this Saturday. I'm very nervous. I'm gonna be playing another game tonight, probably against Imperial Guard. But I also played against World Eaters with the Prime Mission deck. And yeah, I've been enjoying it, but holy cow, I need to get a lot better. I'm pretty good with the rules. It's just like how fast I can recall them, because there's no downtime. It's just a constant back and forth. And so it's just keeping it all perfectly squared away in your brain, all of your opportunities, all of your abilities, all of your profiles, your data sheets, like what is good targets mathematically to go into. Sometimes you want to make like mathematically bad decisions for a good reason. Like I charged Assault Centurions into Catachan, which is super dumb. Like I absolutely melted for Catachan, but it stopped him from getting the primary on that objective. And I had a backup throwing grenades. So like it's all of these little tiny steps that all work together to make the flow of the game. And I was thinking about it, this game took almost 3 hours. In a real game of 40k, like if you're playing it for the idea of it, it's probably a little tiny chunk of the battle that took place over the course of like 5 seconds, is what that 40k game actually is. If any of you have ever played the amazing video game FTL, I've always wanted, like at the end of an FTL run, which is a spaceship game, it's a little bit of like Oregon Trail with a little bit of resource management, and you can pause and then you can say like, you go to the medical room, you go to the cannon room, you go to the engine room, and then a split second later you'll pause again and then you'll move people around. You'll say this missile needs to target here, this laser gun needs to target there on the enemy ship. I've always wanted to at the end of a game, because you spend almost the entire game paused. while you're doing all of your little actions, and then you press play to see those actions happen. I would love at the end of a game just to watch a movie of all the things I did without the pauses. And a run of FTL might take 2 hours. I feel like watching it without the pauses would be probably 15, 20 minutes. And it would be so cool. And I almost want the same thing with 40K. I want somehow a video of the game without any of the dice rolling and moving and all of the stuff. I bet it would only be like a couple of minutes. 40K. What an absolute mess. But speaking of messes, Age of Sigmar indexes are out for all of the armies. I am super excited for my little Sylvaneth. I've got Drycha Hamadreth, and I don't quite have a full grasp of the rules yet. My brain is in 40K land, but maybe after this Saturday, I'll be able to take a harder peek at Age of Sigmar. Maybe I'll even be able to get some games in, but there's a lot of similarities to 40K that have me really excited. Number one, detachments. It's looking like every army is dropping with multiple available detachments, which is super great because one thing now that we're a year into 10th edition, a lot of the armies that haven't gotten codexes yet are getting a little stale, especially some of like the low model count, like 1 index armies like Leagues of Votann, World Eaters, like these armies where it's like, oh yeah, you just play the exact same thing every single time. Or with my Space Marines where I can pick from 19 different detachments because Space Marines are just the poster child of all of 40K. I've been jumping from thing to thing to thing to thing, and that's keeping me really energized. And so I'm excited to try out my Sylvaneth. I think I am right around 1,500 points of Sylvaneth, so I might need to get a couple more things. But I think I want to get some Revenants, some Spite Revenants, because I really like Drycha, and I really like the idea of just these wild little half elf, half trees charging in and stabbing everything with claws. But I'm getting pumped for Age of Sigmar 4th edition. I enjoyed the one game I played of 3rd edition. I just played with the Dominion bots, but it was fun. And I prefer punching to shooting. Maybe you can tell because I'm a Black Templar player, but I do like punching more than shooting. And it seems like Age of Sigmar is very focused on punching. Her ranged weapon is the Flitter Furies, which are these little bees coming out of her body. And her melee weapon is the Slashing Talons, obviously, but she has another assault weapon called Swarm of Squirmlings. I don't know what the Squirmlings are on this model, but I think they're like presumably little grubby dudes. And yeah, it's a 10 attack, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s. So I guess like she takes her little arm and like squeegees out a bunch of grubs over the attacking model, and then they all just like burrow inside. It's very gross. One thing I like about the Sylvaneth is they're in theory the Disney beautiful, nice, tree spirits, but in the lore and in reality, they are monsters. They are vicious, horrible monsters. Things like Drycha and the other Revenants, they are twisted machinations of kind of evil magic that Alarielle invented, probably doing some really bad things to invent them, and then she wiped the knowledge of their invention out of the minds of all Sylvaneths. So nobody knows how or what went into their creation, but it was probably pretty bad if essentially the spirit of Earth was like, I don't want it getting out. What had to happen to make these things? So I'm just gonna keep that on the DL. Really excited for Age of Sigmar 4th edition, almost as excited as I am to play on this month's terrain. Ever wanted to fight your battles in the labyrinthine hallways of a starship, moving your models in tight formation through a maze of corridors, bulkheads, and junctions where retreat is impossible and danger is around every corner? Well, the Eons of Battle Starship Interior is here to make that dream a reality. For the month of July, subscribers to our Patreon will receive the Starship Interior, a set of claustrophobic, dynamic, and modular hallways that are scaled to perfectly suit wargaming miniatures and give you a new way to play. And if you always want to be up to date on the goings-on here at Eons of Battle and be entered into our monthly giveaways, this month we're picking 3 followers to win this month's terrain. You can follow the link in the description to sign up to our newsletter. I have been gaming hard this week, and probably for the foreseeable future, because I am participating in a grand tournament in October. And so I have until October to get good. Is that enough time to get good? We'll see.